Hey, everybody, welcome back. I am excited to interview this beautiful woman today. Her name is Judy Morris. We are going to be inspired. I've known Judy now for, I guess, 10 or 12 years, right? We met 10 or 12
Yep.
years ago. And we just, over the years, I guess, stayed connected through social media, but I always see her for some reason. And she's somebody who knows a ton of people. She has an incredible a private coaching practice. It's kind of, 60-40, if you will, like employment coaching and recovery coaching and case management, crisis intervention, mental health services, treatment placements. Like I felt an immediate connection with her. We met through LaTip in a networking group, and she was, I think, the head of it, and then became later a regional in LaTip. But I felt a connection with her for a lot of reasons. Number one is she had 14 years in the financial industry as insurance and a financial advisor, which I am. I'm 14 years into my career, but she left that career when she felt this pull to coach at-risk women. And so what drew me to her was, yes, a similar background, but she had this incredible confidence and this amazing ability to lead and mentor and coach people that it just blew me away. And I think we're within a few years of age, but she has this incredible reputation for helping people get results. They've had a rough history, but she's been able to really do amazing things to create above average outcomes for them in employment and being independent and getting past some of the challenges they've had just through her life skills coaching. So welcome, Judy. I'm so excited to have you on Be Inspired.
So great to be with you, Gillian. Oh my goodness. You're an equally inspiring woman. I know that one of the things that I was really touched by and had me feel very connected to you was your passion for financial literacy and advocacy, and really empowering families and individuals to take control of their financial circumstances and not fall into the typical Western debt, paycheck to paycheck. You have always had a very, very strong message of empowerment. And I really resonated with that, especially because of our backgrounds.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think fierce advocates are drawn to fierce advocates. That passion for helping others is just, it really is huge. And I think it, like brings like. So this is an awesome opportunity for people to hear from you because, this is a podcast for the entrepreneurs, right? And so whether you're an entrepreneur or not, there's a lot of things that go with entrepreneurship that a lot of people don't want to talk about. The whole idea is you want to become an entrepreneur, and all of a sudden you're going to have like the big house with the infinity pool and the jet. All those things are going to happen overnight, and it doesn't happen that way. It can happen that way if you get the right mentorship, if you do the right things, over time. It's not just, you're going to do it for a year and then all of a sudden you're going to be super successful. And so, I want to know, Judy, how did you make that transition out of the financial industry and help coaching people in recovery and life skills? How did you do that?
I began my financial services career when I was 18 years old. I had answered an ad in the LA Times for customer service for an insurance agency.
Wow.
And, I had been working since I was 15, so I'd always been working, and I'd worked in retail and helping women, sophisticated business women, get dresses for elegant weddings or events or business suits for work. So I'd always been in a more sophisticated business environment, even though I started out in retail in that sector. And then when I was looking for this other job when I was 18, and, I stumbled upon it, was in an office, okay. And I noticed, like, I was doing, answering phones or whatever, but I noticed as people were starting to talk about these things, I just felt naturally drawn to wanting to help them and get answers. And I was really, really good at getting people into the office so that the manager could close them. And he was like, whoa, we need to like license you, He was like, wait a minute, what diamond fell in under the coal that came into my office that I have to like polish? because, you know, he
You're just too good.
Yeah, he did not expect who started answering his phone. He was just like, whoa, you know? And, you know, I got licensed and I ended up working for a major company, Nationwide Insurance. I was in their call center, handling the phones, 28 states, different policies, you know, and so forth. And I've always been a problem solver. So for me, it was like a dream come true. People were calling me with a problem and I got to solve problems all day long, you know, and it was just so, I loved it. I loved that component of it. It felt advocacy-ish because even though it sounds weird, like, oh, you know, you're insurance agent or you're home and auto and life and whatever, but like literally somebody would call me and be like, hello, I'm calling to cancel my collision insurance. And I'd be like, why? You know, and they'd be like, well, because I just paid off my car. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, ma'am, you have a 3-year-old vehicle that's worth $20,000. If it's stolen or destroyed, do you have $20,000 to replace it? Or if you get in a major accident, do you have $6,000 to repair it? And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, then why would you leave your asset unprotected in your driveway? And she was like, oh, I hadn't thought about it like that. Well, I don't want to cancel. Never mind. Thank you. You know, so that's like what my calls look like, where I would see other people in the office and they'd be like, oh, you want to cancel your thing? Yes. And they would just do it like, you know, a dog, sit down, roll over, play dead. But I never listened to the person as just like, I'm a robot taking an order. I was always like, took my role very seriously. Like, I am this agent. I have this license. I have this information. And I always knew that the common consumer just didn't understand, you know? Now, she could have said, I'm a multimillionaire and I can replace that car. And yes, please cancel it. And I would have said, okay, great. Yeah. But I felt it was my responsibility always to check in, like, what's going on? You know, are you sure you really want to do this? Do you really understand the consequences behind the choice? You know, at least have them understand making informed choices in their life, you know, and being that advocate, even for their auto insurance. I mean, it seems silly, right? But I started off helping people protect their assets, right? Like, first I started out helping people create their image, right, at work and at their galas. And then I was protecting people's assets. Then I got recruited to a major, you know, Wall Street firm and got my Series 7 and fully licensed in that. And then I started doing seminars called Smart Women Finish Rich. And I just, again, more literacy, advocacy. And to be honest with you, the person who had really inspired me and got me on the financial services road, not the insurance thing, because I told you I stumbled upon that, but the investment world was The 9 Steps to Financial Freedom, Susie Orman.
Oh, wow.
I read that book back in the 90s when she published it and she was on PBS. And I remember just being completely floored by what she was talking about. And it was the first message that had really gotten a hold of me. And I was really passionate about that portion of it. I was never passionate about the like asset management portion. There was always, you know, managed money. I could get these incredible teams at, you know, Goldman Sachs or, you know, whatever platforms we had. And I could put my clients' money and set it up in such a way that I'm managing the managers, and that's kind of like handled. So I wasn't sitting there trading. Right. You know, I was there as the liaison, as the, you know, representative, really empowering them to make those kinds of choices. And what I loved most about that was the networking, meeting with people, educating people, leading seminars. You know, that was the portion of it that was the most fun for me. But during all this that I'm sharing with you, what mostly people don't see in people's life was I was struggling with alcoholism. So personally, and as I was getting older and different things were happening in my life, and my alcoholism was, you know, sort of escalating, and I was having problems in my personal life. You know, my professional life always could thrive, but I had a lot of problems in my personal life and just in my sense of self and my own peace as a human being. You know, was just not in a good place. And so I had been struggling from the time I was 18 all the way up until I was 25 years old to get sober. You know, it took me 7 years of figuring out, like, what am I going to do? And finally just surrendering to what the solution is to that, which is to stop drinking. It sounds simple, right?
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah. Not so simple.
So at 25, when I really finally surrendered and I got sober and I really committed to that program of recovery, fast forward from 25 to 33. Now at 33, I wasn't the same 22-year-old who had walked into that career. I had become a different message. It's funny that I said it that way. I'd become a different person and I had a different message.
Yeah.
And now, yes, is financial literacy important? Absolutely. But did I feel that God put me here to sing that song?
Yeah.
No. Right? It's a song I know, but it wasn't my song. So the thing that I had at that point felt the most urgency and immediacy about was, recovery and mental health, because, there's so many people. And now it's just has become more and more of a crisis over the years. But, working with these women and helping them and empowering them and educating myself. And when I found myself spending more time, reading Psychology Today or going to mental health seminars than reading the Wall Street Journal or listening to CNN, I knew it was time to make a change.
You do. Yeah. And I think that people have to find their niche or the thing that really pulls them. And sometimes you have to try different things on in order to be able to figure it out. You don't know what's going to be your calling. You said something about what did you say? You qualifies the called. You said something that just it is absolutely blew me away. And I just find that people are chasing something, right? Like you were chasing something in your life and it caught you. You know what I mean? It caught just caught hold of you and you ran with it,
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I think I may have written that in my article that you may have read. So I think that's where you might have got it from. But to that point, nobody is born anything. I didn't start off at 5 years old saying, I wanted to be a drug counselor. I don't think any 5-year-old even has that thought. Or even, maybe somebody wants to be a financial person at that age, but I don't think anybody really knows what they want. I mean, you can see as a small child what looks appealing on a television show or what you see your family doing, but you can't really know yourself. Career is really ultimately at its highest.
Yeah.
It's a self-expression. And it's an expression of your interest, your talents, the things that light you up, not just what you're good at, because people are good at a lot of things that they're good at by necessity, and may not be passionate about. So I think that there's a confusion there. People can be really good at something and make a lot of money for something and be very miserable doing it. So there's a real distinction between what I'm good at and what I love.
Yeah.
And how do I really get to that place of what do I love doing and what am I good at? And if I'm not good at what I love, how do I develop myself in that? Because whatever you got good at, even if you didn't like it, you spent time doing it, which is how you got good at it. Even if it was out of necessity, so I can find time also to develop and to devote my skills in another area to pursue something else.
Absolutely. And well, let's talk about the article, because, I always ask about what is with the great resignation, like everybody, leaving their jobs. And so you're kind of already speaking to that people are seeking something. What is it that they're chasing right now that you feel is making them leave their jobs? It's like 15 million people that left their jobs in the last 6 months,
Well, I don't know. I would say it differently. I don't know that it's people are chasing anything. I think, frankly, people have hit bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
COVID put a big mirror up to the world. It interrupted the day-to-day. People were just in this kind of like in a trance, get up, go to work, get on the freeway, like you have to go to work. You can't question it. You can't argue with your boss. I don't want to lose my job. There was an automaticity culturally in the workplace and in people's feelings about things. And COVID interrupted the already always pattern.
Yeah. The status quo.
Yeah. And it had people kind of in their house, not spending money on all the things that they were spending money on. So they were having more money and they were getting stimulus check, right? So they were in a position now where they could actually take a breath, where people hadn't been able to take a breath in God knows how long.
Yeah.
And that was having people go to doctor, get diagnosis, understand more about their mental health, get their little tails to a therapist. I mean, right now, you know, to get a psychiatric evaluation can be a 60 to 90-day wait.
Wow.
The psychiatry and therapy has blown up because people actually started getting interested in looking at themselves and examining their life. And here's the thing. If you have a moment to examine something, you might do something about it. That's what I think the biggest resistance is to examination, is because people are afraid if I examine my relationship with alcohol or my marriage or my work, what will I discover? And I'm not prepared to take the action that that discovery will then precipitate.
That's so true. That is so true. Because I think a lot of times, even in the financial as well, you know, people go, I don't want to look at it, because once I know, I need to take some action. I need to make some change. You know, you can't unsee it. You can't, what is it? Oliver Wendell Holmes, a mind once expanded can never return to its original state. Mm-hmm. So once you know, you've got to do something to make some change and take some action. So I definitely agree with you. And I think, I mean, in so many ways, people had to reassess what's going on. I mean, we moved a couple hours away from where we were. We were like, okay, well, this is going to be the way of things. We need to make some changes so that we can do what works for us. And I think that a lot of people had to really take a look, because they didn't have any alternative. You know, they could sit and watch TV all day, or they could start looking at, well, what am I going to do with my life? You know? So I'm kind of curious, like, how do you keep pushing through these harder days? Like, COVID has, you know, changed the face of our country and our world in so many ways. And I'm sure you had some hard days. You had some time, especially with, you know, your history. Like, how do you coach on this, but also how do you handle it yourself when you're not feeling, you know, like the empowered superwoman who can do everything the way I see you?
You're very generous. You know, I think perhaps I was in a unique circumstance because I was already predominantly self-employed, and mental health doesn't go away just because of COVID.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my work didn't, I think, experience the same level of interruption as a lot of people's. Mm-hmm. But the fear that I had to face was the possibility of catching a mysterious illness and dropping dead. And I had never considered that.
Yeah.
And that, you know, being afraid initially when the pandemic first started and we had to start wearing masks and everything, being afraid to, you know, go to the store or be in public. I mean, that was a new experience for me, because I don't experience a life of fear at all. I'm not a fearful person. I don't have anxiety. I had anxiety in my past, and I had a lot of those issues, but through my program of recovery and through my, you know, again, my recovery program and my, I know that I don't want to get into a conversation about faith per se, but I think that the thing that no one really knows about me, unless somebody knows me deeply personally, is my power comes from my faith. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not a religious person per se, but I know that there is, like, the sun came up this morning, and I've been on this planet for many, many years, and it has come up every single day for all the years that I've been on the planet. And the air has been in my lungs every day. There's a supply of air. Yeah. You know, birds are singing, you know, everything is happening. Like, nature is doing its thing that it always does. The tides are turning, you know, the birds are flying and singing. And there is this harmony and this peace and this faith in nature. The bird doesn't wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, I'm not going to find worms to feed my children today. I need to smoke some crack, you know, like that's not how nature operates. Yeah. Like, the birds know that if they get up out of their little nest and they go and they fly, they're going to find food, and they're foraging for their family. You know what I mean? Like, they trust that process. And through my faith in my process and through this program, I know that my higher power is not Osama bin Laden. Yeah. I know that. I'm not afraid. Yeah. Because I know that there is a higher power that is all loving, omnipotent, that created nature, that there's a harmony and a reason for everything, and anything that's happening no matter how scary or ununderstandable it is not happening for my harm, but for the highest good of all concerned, whether I can see it in the moment or not. And
Yeah.
I've spent 20 years understanding that. And that's why I have this peace and this confidence, because I know who I am and why I'm here and what I'm talking about. And if I don't know something, I'm not embarrassed to not know. And that's where that peace and that power comes from. So, and even with the pandemic, with those initial fears that happened, it was like, well, my tagline is take action with integrity and leave the results to God or the universe, if you'd like, or Mother
Yeah.
Nature, or whatever your
Yeah.
higher power is, right? So all I could do was wash my hands, wear a mask, stay distant, don't go to gatherings, all those things, right? Like I could take all of those actions, and God forbid, oh, well, like I can't just hide under a rock and be in fear every moment. I have to be like right here in this moment. This is what it looks like. And then the next moment and the next moment and the next moment.
Yeah. Faith is such a key component to happiness. Do you know what I mean? Being able to know fear is a scary place to be, but if you can replace that with the faith that it's going to be okay, no matter what, it's going to be okay. And I think that's huge for whether you're an entrepreneur or not. You have to have faith that things will get better. I think something in our brain kind of tells us it's always going to be this way, good or bad. And so we almost have to overcome that in order to be able to continue to function and make a positive impact. And so you have this incredible ability to, yes, you said take action with integrity, right? And let God figure it out. So, but you've been able to create this amazing positivity and these phenomenal relationships around you. I just remember meeting you before, you had this incredible confidence. And I thought to myself, like, wow, I want to be like her, right? I want to be able to have what she has. How do you do that so effortlessly? Like, what is, maybe you can give some tips to people on how to build relationships and how to up their level of confidence so that they can communicate and have that positivity around them.
So, I feel like what makes my relationship so strong is I genuinely love people. I don't have to know somebody to love them.
Yeah.
And I think that you could have said, like, if you were at my table when I was, an ambassador or regional director, whatever I was doing for whatever place I was doing it for, when I showed up to that breakfast or that lunch or whatever it was, each and every person sitting at that table, whether it was a member or a guest that I've never met, I have love for every single person sitting there. And I'm clear as my sacred stewardness, as a coach, as an empowerer, as a trainer, as whatever I'm doing, I'm there to empower these people. And that comes from a place of my love for people. And I think what's really missing today is because of our Western culture of materialism and the almighty dollar, because make no mistake, people have a higher power. And unfortunately, for the most part, it's the almighty dollar.
Yeah.
And that's not going to lead anybody anywhere but to disaster. I'm very sorry to say.
Yeah.
So, I never lead from there. I have a deep respect and understanding of money. I welcome it into my space, but I'm not going to sell my soul for it, And so I think that there's that balance. And so it's where you're leading from. Where's your come from? Am I here looking at you, and do I see you as a dollar sign and as an opportunity to cash in for some agenda that I have? Or do I look at you as a beautiful child of God and a human being and a brother or a sister to me? And am I present in the moment to my profound responsibility in that relationship, in that moment? Like, who am I in this moment as your financial advisor or your ambassador or your coach? Like, what does that mean? What is my responsibility in that moment to you, my person in that moment? And how do I show up 100% inside of that to support you? And of course, let me make very clear, I spent the last 20 years deeply, deeply involved in education, communication education, seminars, coaching. I've invested a lot of time and a lot of money. I've spent more money on personal development and coaching than probably most people spend in major universities.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because I value developing my talents and my skills and my communication and my ability to impact others. What you love is what will lead you. And that's, again, I really apologize. I don't mean to get into all this. Is not a spiritual program.
I want to hear it all.
but you know, you must guard your heart, for
Yeah.
what you love is what will lead you. And if what you love is for your destruction, you're in trouble. You know, and people have truly become lovers of escape, lovers of materialism. And I'm not blaming people. Look at what we're inundated with.
Yeah.
You know, barely people have a defense. If you're 24/7 being mesmerized by all this social media and marketing and advertisements and, you know, all this stuff, and culturally and societally and familially, you know, if we're in this thing, it's so easy to just get lost. So I'm not judging human beings. I think human beings are extraordinary people with an incredible capacity. And that's part of what my focus is in the work that I do with people, is helping them get reconnected to themselves and not all this nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who am I? It's not about my house, car, or my bank account balance or all these things like that. Yeah, that's great. We want to have a good bank account and a nice car and a good place to live, but I can't be sacrificing my principles pursuing those things, or I'm going to pursue those things to my detriment. And I promise you, I've walked into many a mansion with a broken family, with a mental health crisis, with kids in Prada and Chanel that are suicidal, that are drug addicted, that are miserable because their parents are never home. Because what are their parents doing? They're working 24/7, workaholism, chasing money to give their kids all this stuff. And all these poor kids needed was love, time, and attention.
That is so scary. You know, you just said so much there. I know that looking at everything that goes on, you can feel this. I feel, you know, a supreme amount of overwhelm. And so you really have to you have to make almost a conscious effort to shut some things off so that they're not constantly inundating you. But what you said right there is exactly why I'm not in medicine. I wanted to be able to have more control. I wanted to be able to chase a great life and do wonderful things for others. But I also wanted to make sure that I had a good, solid family life, that we had good relationships. I was nurturing good humans, you know, to be protective, wonderful members of society. You know, my girls they're gorgeous. And I tell them all the time, you didn't do anything for that. Your job is to work on the inside, you know, and to be good people that contribute to others. And you come so much from a place of love and contribution that it just warms my heart. And I get really excited about it because people need more of that. They need to know that is an incredible place to come from, and it can make such a difference in other people's lives along the way. Do you find that entrepreneurs and maybe in, you know, cases where you're talking about now, like, do you find that there's a lot of, this is something people don't want to talk about, the mental illness side of becoming an entrepreneur, like, you know, battling with mental health, like, I have to be perfect, you know, but I have so much work to do. And so this, like, you know, that can lead to addiction and all those things. Can you speak on that? Because I think that's something that people don't, it's just, you know, part of the things that are not, that's not cool for social media, you know?
Well, mental health is we all have mental health. It's just like if I ask you what's your age or how much do you weigh or how much in your bank account, we all have those things, and we have a way that we take our temperature on those things. You know what I'm saying? So there's also my mental health, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, where am I? Like, obviously, there's something called circumstantial depression. If a close person in your life drops dead of COVID, of course you're going to be depressed because you lost somebody. Or if the company that you love working for goes bankrupt and you're laid off and you loved that job, of course you're going to be depressed and sad. You know, that's circumstantial depression. You know, if you're starting a new job or you're in a new relationship, there might be some anxiety. That's circumstantial anxiety. That's normal, right? So I think too much again, our society is about so much about control, and we only value in Western culture youth and beauty and opulence, and anything other than that is just not talked about or not accepted. And
Yeah.
like, if you look at the seasons, which is difficult in California because we don't really have seasons, but
Yeah.
we live anywhere else in the country,
Yeah.
you know, there's spring, and then there's summer, and then there's fall, and then there's winter. So nobody freaks out in the fall when the leaves fall off and go, oh my God, the trees are dying. It's like, everybody knows, no problem. It's going to be cold. It's going to kind of suck. We're going to be freezing, but it's going to pass. And nature's going through its thing, and spring will emerge anew, and the leaves will come back, etc. But we don't give ourselves that same grace.
Right.
As human beings, we go through our own seasons, and it's not just like there's one season or one set of seasons. Every year we go through seasons, right? So we go through different seasons of our life. When we're young and we're pursuing our education or our career, and then, you know, when we are post-education and starting out in our career, fumbling around, learning things, making mistakes, growing, and then possibly selecting a mate and having a family, and then the challenges that come with that, and discovering things. You know, life is an experience, not an accomplishment. You know, at the end of it, it's not about like, it's not going to be statistics on my tombstone about how much money I made. And in fact, if you look at the 5 biggest concerns or regrets of the dying, it talks about, you know, not having spent more time with their loved ones. No, not one person interviewed that was in hospice. A nurse did this incredible study, and she actually wrote a book about it, the 5 regrets of the dying. Not one of them said, I wish I had more money, or I wish I would have worked more hours.
Yeah.
No one said that. People were upset that they had let friendships go, that they had treasured, or that they had not spent any time with their kids, you know, or that they let their relationships die. You know, those were the concerns that people had. And yet we, again, are up against this current of society, our family members. I mean, if your own mom or dad or sibling or spouse is telling you, you can't leave that job, da 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 da, right? So like, if you get that message from your own family, do you know how hard it is to then, and then society is saying everything else too?
Yeah.
You feel imprisoned, and then that's going to create more mental health issues. So, you know, look, being an entrepreneur is not easy, because there's so much responsibility that comes with it. And it's not just about sharing your gift with the world. It's about all of the management and everything that comes with that. And I'm not a big fan of, and I don't advise people, it's just my opinion and experience, to jump from being an employee to being self-employed. I always recommend more of a slow transition where you do some other part-time stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and kind of transition.
Yeah, don't do that. I did that. It was a mistake.
People do it. I just think it's very, you know, it creates a lot of potential risks and problems that just don't have to happen. You can transition a little bit more slowly. If I can use a detox metaphor, when you go to drug detox, they don't just put you from zero to I mean, from what you're doing to zero. It's something called a taper.
Yeah.
So they taper you off of the drugs to get to zero over like a, you know, a 10 to 28 day period, depending on how in trouble you are. You know what I mean? So I like to think of like a detox, a taper from from the employment world.
From the employment world, I'll take it. It's funny. I didn't do it like that exactly. Like, I guess I did taper. I started part-time, and then it was probably about 1.5 years. And then I, you know, continued in my career and built my business. And then I got to the point, what happened was in, you know, 2008, 2009, the market crashed, and I was in a field that, in the medical field, I was in a kind of a discretionary income kind of field. I wasn't really happy with the doctor I was working with. And I was like, okay, I'm going to leave. And that was, you know, that was a rash decision. But, you know, I had kind of built up to it, but still it was stressful. It was definitely stressful. So I think you're right. Like, that idea of tapering and, you know, taking those steps the right way, but also having a coach, having a mentor who can walk you through these things and kind of alert you to some of the pitfalls that are coming. And, you know, so I know you have a book coming out. So can you speak a little bit about that? Tell us a little bit about it. And, you know, I guess that's how you're leveling up for the next next season for you, right?
That's correct. I have a lot to say, as you can hear in this interview.
Yeah.
And I have a lot that I've experienced over the past, 15 years of coaching and mentoring people. I've worked with thousands of people, really supporting them and dealing with what seems like, as we said, all these crises. But, there is a solution. There really is. And I really like to focus on what is the solution. And the only reason to even have a quote diagnosis is to get really clear about what the best protocols and solutions are to support what's going on, to get to the next place.
Yeah.
I don't operate from this like, oh, you're disabled or you have this issue and then now dun 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 dun, you're just limited for eternity. It's like, no, you're in this moment right now. We don't know what the future holds. How do we stabilize in this moment? How do we see what contributed to this moment? How do we make some changes around your environment to improve your situation and your environment and your mental health and all the things, right? Because if you look at it, if you see a tree or plant that you plant and it's like rotting or there's something wrong with it, you don't just go, oh, the seed is just like bad.
Right.
You say, oh, I must not be watering it properly or it's not getting sun. You look at the environment in which it's been planted, and then you go to work on that, Yeah. And so too much, like if you're in a toxic environment where you have toxic stress around you, and it could be from family members. Listen, I'm a big fan of, I'm not about vilifying people's family, but I'm also not about deifying people's family.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about humanizing everybody.
Yeah.
And if your mom or dad or sister, brother, cousin, spouse, whoever is mentally ill or drug addicted or stealing from you or being vicious to you or emotionally abusing you and or physically abusing you, guess what? They don't get carte blanche to do that just because they're quote family. And this whole thought of like, I have to stay in this insanity because we share a bloodline is ridiculous. It's like, I first and foremost have to assess my safety. Am I safe financially, emotionally, etc.? And if I'm not, I got to get to safety, because it's a fantasy to think that I'm going to repair my mental health in an unsafe, abusive environment. That's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And again, all of this takes courage. And I have to find, as I talked about loving others, I had to learn, Gillian, to love myself and to value myself and to be able to give to myself the safety and the stability that I craved and deserved. And inside of that self-love and that self-care and that personal integrity, then as I filled my cup and it spilled over into my saucer, I've been able to give from that saucer to others and show other people how to have that. You cannot transmit something that you haven't got. You got to get right with yourself, and then you can show others how to get right and how to get empowered. But I want to say one more thing, and it's really important because you mentioned it earlier about people's fear of change and so forth. And I think people, in my experience, what I see is that the biggest challenge that people have is they're really addicted and addicted to and attached to things looking a certain way. I have to have this house, I have to have this car, I have to have this relationship. And if I don't have all these things and like, I'm not willing to leave this job or do this thing, like I'm not willing. And, I'm here to tell you, when I was on Wall Street, I was making a lot of money and I owned a house south of the boulevard and I had a very expensive mortgage and I had golden handcuffs, I like to call them. I had a very expensive lifestyle. And when I made the decision to go into social services, mental health, I sold my house and I scaled everything down and I moved into an apartment. I lowered all of my expenses to lower all of my stress to have more control over my life. Yeah. So if you think that whatever the call is on your journey is not going to have a sacrifice involved, think again. And this control that the ego likes to do about, oh, I can't do this, or, whatever I make my higher power is going to rob me of the gifts that God has for me, because there's so many people that are clinging to their Pinto when God has a Rolls Royce for them.
Right.
And people are so limited in their thought, like their little baby ego and what it can create, and not opening themselves up to the universe is infinite and expansive. One of my favorite quotes is, God has many more gifts available than he has children willing to receive of them. Mm-hmm. And as I've gotten out of the way and let go of things, and not like I'm in poverty, believe me, I live in a beautiful apartment in, you know, Sherman Oaks, in a nice neighborhood. I drive a nice car. It's not that I'm like living in a tent. I'm not living in extremes, but it's like in being willing to give up all of those golden handcuffs, I've been able to have incredible freedom, incredible blessings. It's given me so much opportunity to do things, or to rest, or to get help, or to do what, I mean, it just created so much more option for me. And I don't know what your unique journey is going to ask of you, but all I'm saying is be prepared to be asked from the universe, and don't be afraid to make those sacrifices when you know in your heart that that's going to be the next step to take.
Wow. I mean, ultimately, those sacrifices are what's going to lead you. It's almost your way of, you know, bringing back in order to be able to lead you to what it is you ultimately want. And the clearer that we can get on what we ultimately want, then we'll know there's going to have to be some sacrifices along the way. There's no victory without some struggle, you know, along the way. So, you know, wow, I'm going to rewind that, play it again and listen to you. Wow. This is awesome. I'm so glad that I have you on, and I'm, you know, getting an opportunity just for myself to be able to hear from you, but also to share with so many other people. And this has just been amazing. Can I ask you a couple more questions? Just some fun ones. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a little fun to keep it light. So, dogs or cats?
No pets.
No pets. Okay. Book or ebook?
Book.
Okay. I like it. I thought this was really funny. So, cups in the cupboard, do you like them right side up or upside down?
Upside down.
Okay. Me too. Because I'm like, there's dust, right? Alone or in a crowd?
Alone.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that, right? Shopping at midnight.
I've never been into crowds. I went to my first concert in my, like, I don't even know, 39 or 40.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Maybe in my 20s. I was a little bit late, but that's pretty late. So, what about like music when you're walking or you're exercising? Music or podcast?
Zero.
Just
yeah, because you know, the New York in me, I'm not going to be in public on a street with any distraction. I have to be alert of my surroundings at all times. Ain't nobody going to mess with me, girl. Let me tell you right now. They would not even dream to step up toward me. I promise you.
I just really felt the New York for you. That was serious. Okay. All right. I got you. Well, this has been awesome. Judy, you're amazing. I so appreciate you. I want to make sure, let me know when the book comes out. We can promote it. We can, you know, help you market it. I just really have seen, you know, I've known you in a different capacity, just as somebody that I've admired, but you've really been through such an incredible journey, and all of the, you know, the personal development and growth, it so shows. And it's something that I think people need to understand, that is a part of the journey to be happier, to be able to, you know, really reach the best version of yourself. So
freedom, that's what I value. And that's all I'm committed to, is my freedom and health, and other people's freedom and health, because from that freedom and health comes fulfillment and happiness, and the possibility. You can't achieve that in bondage or in slavery. I celebrate 20 years of sobriety on January 10th. Wow. It is possible to live through everything free of any type of substances. I have not had to smoke weed, take a drink, pop a pill at all in 20 years to get through anything that life has handed me. And I've been, you know, making a bunch of money and doing great. I've faced, you know, financial travail. I've been married. I've been divorced. I've had health concerns. You know, I've had all the uncertainty that everybody deals with. But what I've used to deal with all of that is my program of recovery and spirituality. And I'm here to tell you that that's possible for anybody. It's not a fantasy. It's not a myth. It's not impossible. It is possible. It works if you work it and if you want it.
Wow. Well, I'm blown away by everything that you've been able to achieve, and all, like, just the mental fortitude and toughness that you've been able to create within yourself and through all of the years and everything. But this has just been such a joy to be able to spend some time with you, and you know, I love being able to interview my mentors, you know, people that I've admired over the years. So this is awesome. Thank you so much. So
My pleasure.
look, you know, being on your own journey is going to require so much from us, but ultimately for us, this is to be inspired to be able to create the greatest possible life for yourself. So that's what this podcast is about. This is our opportunity to be able to share it with you. So please reach out to Judy, follow her. She's on Facebook. She's, you know, got, I can post your contact information when we post this. Yeah. Okay. Great. So guys, everybody just be inspired for a great life. Have a great day and get after it. Bye-bye.